You're going to transform or exit. Pick one and be deliberate about it. Never been a better time to cash out and exit.
Yeah.
So go do it. Go out on top if we have to go out on all the pressure. Or if you're going to be there longer, transform. Like, it's a fairly simple choice. You just got to pick one. And the thing I'd say as well, as sort of my last thought, is a lot of partners are looking inwards in the industry. They're looking at what all their peers do. They keep asking what everyone else is doing. Well, there's big dangers around this, especially for the people that are just relying on the forums and things. The people that have time to sit on forums are not the successful partners. Just to be brutally frank, yeah, there's probably a couple that sit there and give back generously, but 99 out of 100 are in the same position you are. I can say that with such certainty because our industry average EBITDA is 6%. 25% of the industry is operating at break even or a loss at any one time. Chances are very high that the person you're talking to is not running a high-performing business.
We got James Davis with us here today. James, how did you find yourself in this crazy MSP world?
That's a bit of a story. I'll try and keep it short and sharp. But basically, if I go way back, I started my career in retail inventory management, and I ended up moving to Germany when I was like 19. I worked on a caravan park illegally. I think I've gone past the statute of limitations now. And I did grounds and facility management, and then ended up moving back to Australia, started my own business at 20 doing gardening. I tried to get work, realised tradies were fairly useless, so if they could do it, I could do it. I worked too hard, burnt myself out, ended up in retail sales and got bored of the job. And then I saw this account manager job for an MSP. I had no idea about technology, really. I did some stuff at school. I just applied, didn't expect to hear anything back. Ended up getting hired. I was their second choice, which I always like to let the owner know that could have had it better. But I did that at the time in 2011 where it was all time and materials, and we're going through that transition to MSP. So I was the poor bugger. I was the account manager having to go out and sell the clients on a concept that no one understood in the market. And I did that successfully and got bored, went and started another company, grew it way too fast and burnt myself out. Went back to another sales job, and then the MSP owner ended up getting me back to be his general manager, and I helped him set up the business a lot better. And again, starting to get bored. But at that time, I was involved in ConnectWire's Evolve, HCG at the time. And the members in the group were seeing what I was doing for this MSP called Cool Chili back in Canberra, and asked, can I pay you to help me? And so I started consulting. And then 2019, I ran into Chris Butler, one of the founders of C-Level Operations, and got on really well with him. And we started to talk about bringing that down to APAC properly. And when COVID happened, we thought it was a great time to start up a coaching firm business in APAC, and grew that pretty quickly. And then PAX 8 came knocking on my door to acquire the APAC region after they acquired the US. And I started up the APAC region for Academy and created programs, and brought a lot of partners on and started educating. And I started to get sick of global corporate, so self-selected out, and here I am. So long story short.
Outstanding. So what are you doing now?
So these days I'm acting as a strategy advisor or a fractional chief strategy officer for different kinds of tech businesses down in the APAC region. I'm basically just taking all my experience to help those businesses shape what they think the future is going to look like for them. And then through my operational experience, then I help the leaders actually execute the transformation programs to modernize and do different things while maturing and becoming more profitable at the same time.
Outstanding. Very, very cool. Well, that's awesome. And you used a word, strategic. And I've been really playing with that word myself over the last probably year now. And when I looked back over my career, like 20 years of management consulting with MSPs, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I found my consultants saying a lot like, man, we show them how to do something and they just don't do it. We can't force them to do it. And And I look back at, hundreds, if not thousands of clients we've worked with, and I'm like, man, is their world any better today? Did they meet that really awesome financial goal or growth goal or enterprise value goal? And I wasn't happy to kind of say, I don't know. I think I really helped a lot of moments, a lot of things. And it kind of, like I said, it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, I've just spent the last 20 years working on the tactics of their businesses, working on the to-do list, fix that agreement, hire a dispatcher, whatever it was. And, in that moment, it just pivoted. So this last year has been very strategic focus and operationally focused, tying those two together. Probably took me 20 years, what you realized very early on, but tell me a little bit about strategy and what that means to you, especially with MSPs.
Uh, re- Before I dive into that, it's a really good point, like what you just said. I've gone through the same process of starting very, very tactically solving transactional problems into that sort of operational coaching that C-level ops were up to where I am today. And one of the things is that's what a lot of partners out there wanted. They didn't actually want any strategic top-down approach. They were very transactional themselves. They just wanted their burning problem solved. That was it. And I learned the hard way around that. And then as I got the C-level ops program, what actually happened, it wasn't that necessarily the market started wanting it. It was more there's less and less as you move up the pyramid. So there's a lot that want transactional problem solved. You moved up to that operational coaching that we've done. There are people that want it, but that's a smaller proportion of the partner base. And then as you move up to this strategic level, we're at the top of the pyramid. There's very few partners that want to actually operate at that level. And there's a few reasons why. And if I start with answering your question, is to me, strategy is a few components. I'll probably bastardize the proper terminology here, but really, for me, this top level thinking is around having a vision of what I want to achieve as a founder owner. What's what do I want out of the business to achieve that? What's the identity of the business, the culture, the structure, the size that we want to get to, what kind of people, and then it's the ICP of the clients that we want to work with, the ideal client profile. That's our identity. That's our vision. From there, then we can make decisions around what's our strategy. And to me, what a strategy means is the details around what we're doing to achieve that mission, that vision. And then from there, you create a plan of action and execution. So there's actually quite a few components. And people think strategy is this really big, complex thing, but most often the best strategies are the simplest. It's just really being able to articulate what are we doing and what's the detail and context around that. So it helps us make decisions moving forward.
Well, that sure lines up. Said much better than I could have, and I couldn't agree more with it. Another kind of misdiagnosis or misstep that I've made in my consulting career is the misdiagnosis of why do so many MSPs get stuck at 1 million? Why do they get stuck at 2 million? And I think for a really long time, I said sales. I think at 2 million, you have a little bit more budget. You have, you've reached the maximum value of your network, and sales is that differentiator. And as I thought about it more over this last year, it's like, wait a minute. That's probably true. But I think the bigger thing is you can operate a $2 million 10-person, 15-person organization without a strategy. You just do enough things right in your tactics and you'll get there. But when I really start looking at our clients and friends who are 5, 7, 10 million, those folks, not only have they figured the sales thing out a little bit better, but they really start thinking strategically. So to your point of moving up that pyramid, well, another pyramid is just filled with everyone's 1 million, everyone's 2 million, very few are 3, 5, 10. So I think my own ICP has been, let me help these $2 million guys get more profitable. But as we've tried to reach into this strategy side, it's like, oh, you're not ready for that conversation. You're resisting this conversation, or you're nodding your head saying, yeah, that sounds good. But by the way, my agreements suck in ConnectWise. So it's this battle. Does that sound relatable to you at all?
Very much so. Like as you're saying that, the words that come to my mind a lot of the time in that sort of segment of partners is they don't actually want to be bigger. And it's important because they do, when you don't want to do something, you're not going to do it. And you're going to find different ways to avoid it or push back or resist that sort of change that you need as you go through these key business sort of ceilings. And for a lot in that 1 to 2 million, they just don't want to be bigger. It's not even that they don't want a strategy and all of that. That there's a resistance there because it's uncomfortable and it's hard to be creative around that. But legitimately, most people just want a deliberate lifestyle business. They want to have a quality business that's sustainable, that generates them enough money so they're comfortable, they look after their staff, and they've got really good relationships with their clients. And as little noise and issues as possible. That's what most of the owners in the industry globally. That's their mindset, which they resist in deliberately saying that because they think they need to become a big behemoth. Like that's the general business advice that's around there. Very few people talk about that sustainable business practice and that deliberate lifestyle business. And so they're not a growth business and they're not a deliberate lifestyle business. So they've got one foot in each camp and they're not making decisions to achieve either of them. And that's why they get stuck. That's why they're unprofitable, because they're not deliberate. And that comes back to a strategy and plan again. You can have a strategy that is a deliberate lifestyle business and you drive the action plan off that.
It's funny that lifestyle business word, uh, like somehow it took on a negative connotation, and I know I get defensive on behalf of my clients, like when someone describes them as lifestyle or when I hear that phrase used, but it's to your point, it's man, fucking lean into it. That's okay. 2 million making 200 grand a year. Hell yeah, take that all day long. But they just don't want to kind of concede that. They also don't want to concede some of the tough work they're going to have to do, which brings me to a question or a thought. When you try to live in both worlds, like you said, a foot in each camp, that's the most confusing place to live. I mean, it's really hard. There's a lot of frustration in that. So what do you think? Is it the guy? Oh, here's the question. I'm sorry, I fumbled that a little bit. The question is, oh man, it's right on the tip of my tongue. We'll edit this part out. Shit, James. Yeah, I'm gonna have to let it go. The idea of making that oh, here it is. Finally, it's here. All right, I'm just going to wave like this for the editor. All right. So when we get to that point where that client is having to decide, am I going to lifestyle? Am I going to go for it? One of the things that I found really challenging is that direct question. I'll ask a client or a prospect, what do you want? And man, every time they'll start listing all the things they don't want. It's so hard. And it's hard for me to kind of say, what do you want? What do you want this vehicle you've chosen, an MSP business, to get you where you want to go? What do you want? First, they'll tell me what they don't want. Then they'll say, well, I'm not the type that's ever want to retire, or I don't want to sell. That wouldn't feel good for my clients. I want to take care of them or my employees. Am I alone in that observation or that experience?
Nah, it's very much. I'm assuming it's a much wider small business thing, but especially now in our industry, we're very self-sacrificing, especially the original sort of generation that's still operating their businesses. they've sacrificed everything for everyone else. They're very selfless people, and you've got to be to do, you know, back in the day when you had to work 24, 48 hours in a row just to get something back up. Like it's that mentality of there's more important things. And I very much find the same thing. They don't know what they want, or they're too afraid to say what they want. But a lot of the time, it's mainly they don't know how to articulate what they want. And so that being able to say what you don't want helps a lot. And in my roles, even with the bigger, more mature partners, and I work with very successful business owners, they go through the same thing. Is that articulation of what they want next is difficult. And so my job day to day around the strategy part is having those conversations, having those interactions, and getting a picture and a feel of what someone wants, and then I play it back to them, and I might say, like, let's assume we're talking to a deliberate lifestyle business that can't say it. I'll be asking around the growth trajectories, and every partner, if they're $1 million, they'll go, oh, I want to be 2 million in the next 2 to 3 years. If they're 2, they want to be 5. If they're 5, they want to be 10. If they're 10, they want to be 20. It's always just double the business in 2 to 3 years. That's the default answer because everyone thinks they need to default to that answer. And when I peel it back and go, oh, okay, so you're telling me this, what are you doing about it? And why are you trying to get to that size? I can start to feel that most people aren't sure why. And so when I can play back and go, well, sounds to me you actually want to have this sustainable business. You like the sort of size employees you've got. You might want to add, maybe 5 extra at most. You want to have these really deep relationships with your clients. You want to do this, you want to do that. And then play it back to them and they go, oh, that really does sound like what I want. And that's the starting point. That creates a frame of reference. That's the start of that vision identity strategy. And as they get comfortable around that, then they get more comfortable about refining it. But they struggle to set that sort of starting point reference because we're not trained to think about that. When it's not a natural thing to break it down into goals and that sort of structure. We've all started our businesses organically because we had a skill. It's the whole E-Myth thing, and we're not going into this as a business, as an investment. It's our identity that we're doing it, and we're just not deliberate about our actions that we take.
Yeah, man, that's beautifully put, and I love that phrase. This is a very self-sacrificing industry. I've used less flattering terms of, "What are you, a fucking martyr?" Like, because it's there. I mean, it's thousands of times you hear these folks say, "I just like helping people. I'm not really in it for the money, and I don't really need to get bigger." And I've put more of a negative connotation on there instead of really recognizing what you're saying, that no, this is the DNA of somebody who has gone through the grind of IT. You are in service of others constantly, whether that's what you wanted or not, God, the other thing you said about, this is, they didn't start this business as an investment. They started as, I've got a skill. I want to do this, man. I mean, you're dropping some knowledge, man. I love it. Is there, I can't imagine there's ever a version where well, I know there's no version of convincing somebody they want more, but I like also how you kind of get them into that position of reading it back to them. This is what you said. Now where do we go? Maybe we do get intentional about the lifestyle. So no, that's really good, Jamie. When you think about, some of the clients you've worked with over the years, um, have you been in that spot where somebody, thought they wanted something else and you've had to reveal, like, hey, we're 1,000 hours into this, or we're a year into this. You're not really demonstrating what you said you wanted, whether it's they said they didn't want to be lifestyle or they said they wanted to be lifestyle. Maybe walk us through that a little bit.
It's usually, I've seen it a lot of times. It's usually the people that say they want to grow. I- And I've gotten better at seeing the signs of they say one thing, but they don't actually execute on it. And it is very consistent that, oh, yeah, I want to be that $10 million company. I want to be that $100 million company. And these days, I'm older. I'm a bit more cynical, a bit more straight to the point of when I do talk to someone and say they are in this $1 to $2 million range, the average sort of partner size. They go, oh, I want to become a $10 million company. I go, great. How long have you been this size? And most of them have been this for 5-7 years at this point. And so I'm very straight up of saying, well, it's highly unlikely you're going to hit 10 million because you haven't done it yet, and you haven't done anything to actually grow to 10 million. And it's a bit harsh, but realistically, you there's plenty of opportunity to grow, and you would have gotten past this $1 to $2 million range. You might have got stuck at the 3 or 5, but you wouldn't still be at a $1 and $2 million business. So there's fundamental things that need to change, and that often the fundamental thing, nearly I'd say 99% of the time, is the owner needs to change. So if you're not prepared to actually transform your mindset, transform your approach first, well, you're never going to get to that size. Irrelevant of strategy or anything else, if you keep doing what you've always done, then you're going to get the same results. And it's not, to your point earlier, yeah, we hit barriers due to sales, but we don't sell because we don't want to sell. There's a mindset thing there in the first place, and a lot of the owners out there see sales as a dirty word. So if you're not going to go generate revenue and profit, there's not going to be any revenue and profit. And that's that first hurdle that a lot of owners need to get past. And then the second major one is really about the money side. And what I mean by that is, like you said, a lot of owners don't come into this to make money. And that mindset, while admirable, we're a business. We need to make money. But people think making profit is a bad thing. And so that gets in the way of a lot of things and creates a lot of bad habits. And if you're an average partner, that $1 million range, 6 to 7 people, you're only generating 6% EBITDA. So we're talking about making 60 grand a year in profit. That's not a lot to invest in things. And you're probably not paying yourself well enough either. So you might be taking home 120, 130, which is what I typically see at this size. So you could probably go earn more doing a job. So clearly the money is an incentive. But it's that attitude about money that then gets in the way of you driving activity around money, and that flows into the team. So if you don't want to drive sales and you're not looking at how to be profitable, well, you're stuck in that spot that you are.
And that's and how it, there's so much celebration that an MSP or any small business, should rightfully have when they reach that million or that 2 million. But that's a scary place, because you are forced to look in the mirror, right? You have to say, what do I want? And that relationship to money is huge. It does seem like they think it's an either or. I care about my clients, employees, or I care about money. And that's a mindset that, boy, I know I haven't had any success, changing that mindset, because it is a mindset. I've got a client that's about 14, 15 million. And man, he loves the scorecard of money. He's got his jet and he does all the wonderful things. No one cares more about his employees than that guy, So it's just that is it DNA? Is it, how they came up? I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know can people change? Can they change that viewpoint? And what role does James play in helping them change, if it's even possible?
So I think most of us have that weird mindset around money because we grew up getting told not to ever talk about money. So that affects, sales and everything like that, and you see it in the partners all the time that we'll react to an order. So I'm talking about, we're not even selling. The client wants something, We will come up with a solution. The client, and we because we don't sell, we just come back with, here's how much it is. The client will go, oh, that's too expensive, and our first default reaction is to discount. There's no willingness to talk about money. Do you have the budget? What's the problem? Here's the value. All of those kinds of things, because we're not in a sales mindset, let alone just a consulting mindset. We're in an order taker mindset, and so we are reactive in discounting because that's the easy answer, and because we're not focused on profit, we're never thinking about, well, what's the point of even us doing this sometimes? If we discount enough, well, we're probably losing money on it. So we're addicted to that busyness as well. And
Yes.
that changing mindset, I think a lot of people are born with certain mindset, and they grow up in that sort of environment that's more attuned to financial acumen. Like I didn't grow up around any other business owners or anything. So when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. Everyone around me was just like, you're a business owner, you're super awesome. How brave are you? So there was no one to learn off until I started to get into, I was lucky enough with the MSP owner being involved in HTG, and he was quite mature and all that, and all the people that I got to learn off, I learned a lot, but most of us don't get that opportunity. And so going to answer your question of that changing a mindset, there's sort of, I'd say there's three camps. There's the ones that get it and they just do it. There's the ones that are never, never, never going to change. And those ones are gamblers. And I'll come back to them in a second. And then there's the middle ground. And they can be changed, but the mindset only changes if they have a purpose. And so the only success I've had in the past is if I help them create the purpose of why they need to be profitable. Most of the time it does come back to, well, you want to pay off your mortgage, you want to set up your family really well, you want to be able to pay your employees better, you want to deliver better client service. So here's how you do it. You have to charge the right amount so you can invest in these things and you remove stress. And then it's a process to go through. But those gamblers are never going to change because they're chasing the big wins. They never remember their losses. And all they're thinking of is the next big opportunity. And I was unfortunate to work with a few of those in my early days. I was able to get people that were as low as negative 20% EBITDA running like that for like 6 months, turn them around in 6 to 12 months, and they're running at 20+% EBITDA. And as soon as I stepped away, straight back to old habits, because that's the only way they know how to do it. They make the wrong decisions, they're chasing the wrong things, they're just playing that game thinking, well, if I just buy this one tool then I'm going to go big. They're very much just thinking that way. And that's why I call it that sort of gambler, because that's how they're approaching their business. So short summary is that there is a middle ground there that people do want to learn, but they will only apply those habits if they've got a purpose behind it, because it's easier to default to what we've always done.
Yeah, that's yeah, James is just both like enlightening and exciting and very like sobering for me because it's really in this last year again that getting to their why is so important if you're going to have a chance of getting that middle ground person to change. So, I've been working on lots of different ways how to broach that conversation because it really, in its most obnoxious form, it's why do you want that? Well, then why do you want that? And it always does kind of end up with setting up the family, paying off the mortgage, spending more time with kids or grandkids. It always gets there, but they have to be able to attach that feeling or emotion to it. Otherwise, all this work, you just get fatigue, right? As you're like, oh, I gotta change this in ConnectWise. Now I need to do that dispatch thing. Now I need to do this. And it's like, if you don't have any sort of emotional attachment to why you're doing that, it's damn near impossible. Like discipline or, whatever. It's like, I don't think that's enough. You got to have a real big emotional attachment to what you're doing. Oh, feel very validated hearing you say that. I love that. And it comes so easy for you, James. This is just how you're wired. I mean, did you have, like, I'm telling you, I've had this big moment over the last year. Did you have a big moment, or did this kind of just make sense from day zero for you?
Oh, it definitely didn't make sense day zero. It's been an iterative process. It's like I'm very much a constant learner. If you look at my sort of career history to where I am now, I do things very fast and jump from different things. So I learn in sort of those sort of short bursts, and I learn a lot in that sort of first consulting type gig, working with poorly performing partners and being that more transactional. I realized it wasn't the right way. I could feel that it wasn't working. I didn't I didn't know the solution to solve it until when I started talking to the C-level guys and then running that program. And so, well, that step up, that discipline, that structure makes a huge difference to reinforcing habits and engaging people at a different level. But while I was doing that, especially in this region, there's a lack of leadership talent and experience. There's a whole generational gap that's disappeared. And so there's this disconnect between that sort of strategy layer and the tactical layer, that there's not really the senior operations people that just get it and just need to be fed information. And so I was already realizing we're going to have to pivot as Pax 8 was going to buy us out, because I could see we're going to need to become more fractional leaders inside those businesses to get the real traction, just because there wasn't enough experience. And it's just that observation from spot to spot to spot. I saw what would go wrong, and I'm very self-reflective, always thinking about what have I done wrong, what could have I done differently, what are the partners really needing and why, and then trying to reshape that so that I can meet them and move them. And as I've been doing this, I end up where I am now. As a self-reflection, I've been realizing I really can't, at this point now, I empathize and I can see a lot of the average partners where they're at, but I've learnt so much that I don't actually understand their mentality anymore. So that disconnect of what I do day to day is not their reality anymore. And so you can be, obviously I get along with a lot of partners and I provide information, but I'd struggle to do what I used to do because I don't believe it anymore. I come from a much different mindset. And that's a really difficult thing, I think, because there's not that many either that are coming up like I did. There's not enough operations people and stuff to actually help. And so again, there's a big leadership gap.
We'll be right back with more, but first, here's a quick message from Bering McKinley.
Most MSPs are constantly busy, chasing tickets, projects, and fires. But without structure, it's hard to know if the business is really improving. Vision from Bering McKinley is the system that helps you work on your business, not just in it. It connects leadership strategy with daily execution. Vision aligns people, process, and performance, creating clarity and rhythm from goals to results. And the Vision app brings that structure to life, helping you create policies, track goals, review KPIs, and collaborate with your BMK consultant all in one place. Behind it all, Jetson AI, your assistant inside Vision, helps you find answers, generate insights, and take action faster. With Vision, you gain visibility, accountability, and measurable growth. You're not guessing, you're improving. Vision, Jetson, and the Vision app, your path from strategy to results. Start transforming your business today.
All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, that's huge. I don't want to cast too negative of a view on the work I've done over the last 20 years, but I'll share another kind of example here of um, I've got this great mentor, just amazing human. He was a former MSP client and sold his business and really, I've drug him into my world. And, he said something about 2 years ago and I wanted to fucking kill him when he said it. But he's like, Josh, you're not a consultant. You're the tax man. I said, what do you mean? He said, you're just taxing your clients for things that they didn't do themselves. Again, using the ConnectWise or the
Yep.
dispatch. You're
Yep.
just doing these things and they're just paying a penalty. You're not really helping their business. And I was just like, man, that's fucked up to say. What are you talking about? And as he kind of elaborated on it, I was like, holy crap, you are right. I'm not, that impact isn't happening to your point of, that self reflection of like, why isn't this working? Why aren't more people doing better or getting to another level? It's just, taxing them on the tasks is not going to get them where they want to be. So, yeah, that's really interesting. Now, well, let's kind of shift gears a little bit. Like I love the financials. I love the P&L. I love, our 13 numbers and getting people to understand them. I find that that's one of the necessary steps is just for owners to become just massive students of the P&L. I'm very happy to look at it a different way. And what's your relationship with the P&L and your clients?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because having gone through all these different iterations, I think my view on those things have changed a lot as well. So if you look at go back to the consulting piece, it was mainly, if they're making money, then that's the least of our concerns because I was so used to working, 50% were in like distress. So for me, it was just like get them out of distress and we're good. As I went into the operations coaching, it was a lot more around that discipline and that incremental profit improvement. Now with what I do, profit is very important, and the partners I work with, profit's important. But it's more about like what the money's actually doing for us and what the numbers are actually telling us, and it's a lot less operational because because what I'm doing more nowadays is rather than optimizing what people have got, we're going through the transformation journey to create new business models and operating models for the future. So what I'm typically looking at these days is more around the risks of the revenue streams that they've got and where that's going to be when we say support is a lot less valuable. How much are they going to lose, and where are they going to be able to shift that revenue and turn that into higher margin? Where the average MSP, even if they're good with the finances, they're only looking at maintaining what they've got and optimizing what they've got, not thinking about their traditional business models commoditizing, client churns going up dramatically. That deliberate lifestyle business, that was an ideal thing for an MSP probably 10 years ago to build that, churn a lot of good profit and maintain it and then cash out now. I would not want to be a deliberate lifestyle business running an MSP because you're going to lose a lot of your clients. The price pressures on your traditional services are only going to increase and our costs are only going up. So that profitability is just shrinking all the time. And that goes back to that sort of gambling as well. But that view of the P&L really depends what you're coming from. Like it's always important to look at the numbers and understand them, but it's the perspective that you put on them that starts to become important. It's sort of that, are you looking back yesterday? Are you looking at today? Or are you looking at it from a tomorrow perspective?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Those pressures that are coming on that client attrition. I don't think I've named it just yet, but I think you did a really good job. It is that, whether you're highly vertical specialized as an MSP, well, if you're there, you're seeing, I don't care what industry, and you're seeing that consolidation, just like we've seen in the MSPs. I've got clients heavy into dental. He's like, yeah, it's an existential threat that these DSOs are gobbling up all these dental practices, and then we're out the door. And law firms, no one seems immune to it. So yeah, that's a really good point. And tell me this, I like also what you said about, what's the story the P&L or the numbers are telling us. And to me, that's kind of that evolution over time as well, to say, well, first we're looking at the P&L to know why we're profitable and not profitable. Now it's really all about, what problems can we triangulate in the operations from the financials, but you're going another level to say which revenue streams have the biggest threat to them and how are we going to address that as well. I like that. One of the things I'd love to ask you about is around that idea of like forecasting. And is that something you get involved with with your clients quite a bit as well?
Yeah, so there's a fair few, like probably 50% of my clients have proper CFOs as well. So they're doing this naturally, and then they often just use me as a sounding board of like what's going on in the industry, what are pricing doing, like what's competition doing, to sort of sanity check what they're doing. But the other 50% don't have that level of acumen. And so they don't even have sort of a budget a lot of the time, or the budget that they've put together, their methodology isn't necessarily correct. Doesn't mean it's wrong, but it's probably not correct for what they're trying to achieve. And so a lot of the forecasting, like most of the time in our industry, we default to going, how much MRR are we targeting to grow? We want to add, we don't want to go from $50,000 MRR. We're aiming to get to 70 this year. It's that finger plucking in the air. And so a lot of the time what I'm doing is more letting them sort of set some targets and then helping them work, engineer the numbers of how that actually breaks down. What's always fascinating is how detached that sort of targets that are being set and then the reality of our growth trajectory. And the biggest thing is always that additional MRR of going, well, what are we doing? Like, what are we adding that's going to generate this MRR? Most people will default to, we're just going to add more clients. And then if we're going, an extra 20 grand a month that we need, then, let's just say the average is a 2 grand a month deal. So it means we need 10 clients. How many clients did you put on last year? Maybe 1 a quarter. Okay, so we actually need 3 times the amount that you've got there. What are you actually going to do to make that happen? And that's where it all starts to fall apart. That's that strategy and planning side that not enough of us do. So we don't realistically break these numbers down to then create an action plan of what we need to do. Sure, if we're going to go for 20,000, we know we've got to invest. Most people's default answer is, we'll just hire a BDM. And that sounds logical to everyone, but it fails every time, because when you take the next layer down, what's our strategy? Where are we getting contacts for them? What's our core entry point or entry points that they're targeting to sell? All this sort of information we don't have and we haven't built. And that goes across all areas of the business. It's like, well, maybe we're just trying to get more out of our existing managed services clients by driving efficiencies. Great. What we're going to target another 10% gross margin, right? How are you actually going to get that? What are the things that are core to that change? Or maybe we need to launch a new solution, whether it's professional services, whether it's more recurring, whether it's advisory, whatever. Maybe we need to launch something else. Well, how are you actually going to get that to market inside your clients when you're not even doing the traditional white space sales in your clients because you don't like sales? It's those kinds of challenges that people aren't thinking about. It's an ambition rather than an actual plan.
Yes, for sure. And I think that brings up an interesting kind of diversion there when we think about the pressures on the commoditization of the managed services offering. Those things that were innovative 8-9 years ago are now kind of commoditized or on their way to being table stakes. I'm a terrible visionary, but I do kind of just keep getting this nudging that automation. We've done so much, so many great tools have come in, those RPAs, and I'm watching MSPs, get into the Roost world and just kind of not being super excited about it. Taking a powerful tool like Roost and saying, well, what's it going to do? Help me onboard clients easier? Yeah, and like the end of the story there. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It seems like if you master this tool for yourself, your clients have zero technical aptitude. If you kind of get into, I think you called it advisory, but if you can get a little deeper in with your clients and understand how they work, you've got a whole new business line that is a long way from being commoditized. That, and then figuring out kind of the AI story for them. I hear a lot of people kind of playing with Copilot and thinking kind of layer one of what they can be doing with their clients with it, but I'm not seeing anyone running and gunning to the front of the line on those two offerings. Dispel me of my thoughts there, or validate, man. What are you thinking about AI and automation delivery
So,
from an MSP?
so the partners that are organically growing the most and making the most money and all of the fun, high performing stuff are all advisory led, or they're super high scaling traditional things, just gobbling everyone up. They're optimizing everything and they're just going at scale. Like they're the two growth patterns. So for the average partner out there, we need to look at advisory because we're not going to scale up. That's just not going to happen. So what I mean by advisory is quite simple. It really is like what you said. It's actually understanding the client, how they operate, how they make their money, what industry they're in, and what challenges and opportunities are there. And then how can we leverage technology to solve different problems? And whether or not we deliver the technology solution or we leverage a partner to come in and do it is irrelevant. The core value there is that advisory level engagement. And so if you start with that, everything else becomes easier decisions, and you see trends, you're able to go decide whether you want something as a core capability or leverage a partner, whatever. The sky's the limit in that side. And so automation is a great component of this. And I say automation rather than AI, and I won't go and rant about AI too much because it's a pet peeve of mine, but that sort of, I call this space is more productivity and efficiency. We're looking at automation workflows, system integration. Yeah, there might be some forms of AI in that, but what we're really looking at is how does a function or a task get done? And then how do we make it as efficient as possible to make our team more productive? And so if we look internally, and like you said, there's a lot of great tools, and a lot of this isn't, while there's new technology and it's more accessible, we've always had the opportunity to leverage technology in our space to make ourselves more efficient. You look at the RMMs were sort of the start of that. And they didn't live up to the promise of delivering, allowing one tech to manage 1,000 endpoints and support 1,000 endpoints. We didn't get there, but we could easily, with traditional methods, manage like 300, 350 endpoints per tech. But most of us have never got there. We're stuck at like 150 is the average. And that's because of our mindset. We're still stuck in that break fix mindset of throw labor at responding to the phones as fast as possible to fix something. And that's the first thing that we need to change in this next evolution. And the reason for that is because what we're heading into, and the industry's bugging the crap out of me at the moment, is we talk about the iterations of our industry in the past. We've gone from like hardware resellers doing time and materials and professional services to doing fixed price managed services. Some of us evolved into that more proactive, proper MSP. Majority of the industry is still at fixed price support. And so they're talking about this automation and cybersecurity as just a bolt-on to that model, MSP 3.0. But there's a reason why none of us are successful in it, because these things are not bolt-ons. They're a complete business transformation. So if we go back to the automation focus, the reason why most people aren't even doing it and they're avoiding it is they don't actually have the skills and capability and mindset in their business to run this. And they're probably never going to, is the scary part, because it's a different thing. A help desk engineering mindset is something breaks, I respond quickly and fix it, and solve whatever I need to, band-aid it up. It's making things operational and stable again, and then they move on to the next one. That's what they do. They're like paramedics. They're not worried about what's after the fact. It's we make sure you're living right now, and then we're going to move on. Where if we get into automation, actually, it's DevOps. We need to think about our process of how we're running it, what technology we're going to use, how we're going to make it efficient, what are the different touch points that we're going to have to involve, what integrations are there. It's a very different thought process. So that's the first hurdle. The second hurdle then is actually being good at implementing stuff in our business, implementing operational change. Most partners are terrible at implementing operational change because they're reactive and transactional. So they will. You just need to look at everything that we've already got. We half implement tools. We buy something new, we half implement it, we move it on. Like exactly to your point around our PSAs, how people don't have agreements and track time and stuff at this point in the industry, it's crazy. It's well trodden. All the best practices are there. It's time to move on. But that's our mentality. So even if we get over that and we're going right, we're going to go implement it. The next hurdle is our resources. We either don't dedicate enough time to it, or we don't have the people with enough skills to do it. So often what I'm seeing is a tech that has some sort of interest in trying it will get thrown at it, won't get given enough time, and they don't learn. It's just they're not actually going to be the right people to do it. So if we get past that, we dedicate a full resource that's a DevOps engineer, then we're getting closer. And then the next hurdle is adoption. You might be able to roll out Roost or Pia. Let's use the user onboarding, offboarding stuff. We get that set up, but then the team doesn't actually trigger the automations because two reasons. One, they're not trained to use the system. It's just been set up, so they don't know it's there. They don't know when to use it, what to use it for, what's the art of the possible in it. So they don't use it. But also, for most help desk techs, that's their job, tickets. So if you automate most of my jobs away, who am I? What am I doing? And we just assume they'll buy into it and they can see everything that's possible after, but they don't. They need more training. They need a vision of, if we remove all of these tickets, you're going to get trained on this, this, and this, and this is where you're going to head, and this is what you're going to do. And then they need that reinforcement as they go. So now we get past that. We've done all this awesome work. We've automated everything. Our team's bought in. It's being used and adopted. Great. We've reduced tickets. We've increased time. Clients are happy. Very few partners are actually driving any levers to financially realize the benefits. So I'm just picking some random numbers out of my head. We might be paying 20 grand a month for our platform and the resources to run automation. Well, if we've just reduced tickets, that's all we've done. All we've done is added 20K of expenses. So our profitability's just dropped. And that's because we haven't pulled these 5 levers. We've either got to reduce headcount and save on labor cost. If we're not growing, everything's static. Only thing we can do is cut costs. The second lever is we add more clients, and so that we don't need to add headcount. So we bring new people in and we add more and more endpoints and users, and we gain efficiencies like that. The average partner isn't adding many clients. The third one is then to shift the resource capacity that we've freed up into revenue generating activity. So let's just say projects for simplicity. Well, that requires us to actually go sell more projects. They don't just magically happen because we've got capacity. Then the fourth option is maybe we do have lots of projects and we've got a massive pipeline, even with the extra resources that we could throw at it. What we need to do is leverage automation to drive the velocity of the project. So what I mean by that, again, random numbers, maybe it's taking a month to do a project. If we can leverage that to do two projects, that means we can realize revenue twice as fast compared to the past. And then the final one is to your point, if we've got these skills and we've got these people, we could start using those resources to actually do this kind of work for our clients and charge money. And so I know I've just said a lot in that process, but there's a reason why I get so passionate about this, because it goes back to that whole bolt-on stuff. The industry is talking like it's super easy to do all of this stuff. But when you break down this reality, it's difficult in itself to do it, let alone realize the profitability on the other side. But there's a huge transformation in that. You've got to stop focusing on your core business, which is really scary for a lot of partners. It's a lot easier to default back to tickets are coming in, I'll just focus on responding to them really fast and making my clients happy. The danger of that for the partners is, we've spoken about client churn is a massive problem. And we're not spending enough time talking to our clients from an advisory perspective, and our clients that aren't looking at exiting are looking at how they do their business differently. And if we're not talking to them, they're maturing out of our traditional way. So the partners are stuck between a rock and a hard place with multiple things. And if you're an average partner with 6% EBITDA, you've got nothing to invest anywhere. You've got to actually take a hit and a loss to go through that transformation process, because you've left the optimization so late.
Yeah, if I thought the phrase lifestyle business would offend an MSP, telling them that they are transactional and reactive would be the ultimate insult. But I think it's probably very true, right? That promise of managed services, that promise of, X number of endpoints per technician, it just has not come to fruition. But, that's what we see, right? And I think that explanation, or that observation, really does help me at least understand why that transformation to more advisory is really hard. We've programmed ourselves. Do I, the owner, have the skill set to sit in that advisory seat? Well, if I don't, thinking back to your skill set deficiency in the industry, man, we're painting a bleak picture here, James. But I think it's realistic. Give us some hope here. Give us, as we start winding down a little bit. What and not that what you just said was doom and gloom, or the picture you're painting is doom and gloom, but I know I'm kind of thinking, oh man, these are great. What's the upside here? What are you seeing as something to get really excited about as an MSP?
I always feel bad because I do speak a lot about the doom and gloom, and it, unfortunately, it is the reality for a lot of partners. Like it is doom and gloom, because partners don't have a strategy and a vision. They're not deliberately doing anything. They're sitting there waiting for something to happen. It is the worst time in our industry ever to sit there and wait to see what happens. Yeah, without that deliberateness and focus, and a plan, and you're holding yourself accountable and refining to it, you're lost. You're making these transactional decisions in isolated pockets, not understanding the full context of what's going on. And it sounds bad, but in reality, a lot of the owners do not have the right gut feel for what's happening out there in the industry. They've got the lens of what it was 10 years ago, not what it is now. It's really dangerous when you don't have enough context to make the decision. But on the flip side, there's never been more opportunity in the small business technology services space than there is now to make money. But it's not the way that we've used to do it. Right? And you can see that through the partners now. The average partner, I'll use the AI thing, their default is to fling a co-pilot license. Same with cybersecurity. Let's just fling a license. That is not valuable. That's commodity straight away. We've skipped like 10, 20 years of what we went through to commoditize our traditional services now. We're going in like 2, 3, 4 years. We've commoditized all the baseline stuff straight away. And we haven't thought about what's the high value offerings there. And a lot of that's because most owners are ready for exit. They're actually got one foot towards exit, whether they're deliberate about it or not. They've been doing this a long time. They're very worn down. like we said at the start, they've sacrificed a lot. They've done a lot of great things for a lot of businesses. They've saved the day for a lot of people. They've done a great work, but it's worn on them. And this, because it isn't just a bolt-on, it's a huge transformation. It's going to take you 3 to 5 years to transform your business model. That's a long horizon if you don't have a lot of energy. So clinging on to the past is doom and gloom because, yeah, you are going to be screwed. Like, I don't like saying that, but it's reality. I don't gain anything from saying it. I'm not selling anything for it.
Right.
So the opportunity on the other side is small businesses know and value technology because the demographics has changed, and they're in a position where they can actually leverage technology. We've got more ability to access different technologies than we ever have. The millennial business owners and senior leaders will consume technology in a lot of different ways. Gen Z has grown up with it. They don't know a world without technology. So it's there. And so the more that we can rise up and look across 12 technology categories and the 6 value streams, the possibilities of monetizing different things is endless. We've never had that before. Legitimately, we could only do end user support and infrastructure management in SMB space. Now, world's our oyster. And then you wrap around cybersecurity by default, advisory. The possibilities just keep getting huge and huge and huge. And the fact that most partners are static and stagnant and looking backwards, trying to get back SBS server and reliving the old days, means there's fewer people in this blue ocean. Like, it's completely blue ocean. And there's all these clients that are looking for that. So if you're active and present and you're talking about different things and actually meeting the clients where they're at, all of a sudden it opens up a tap of leads and prospective clients to engage in a much different way. And the beauty about the advisory, the automation, the GRC, all of these things, it doesn't have the time pressure of fixing broken things. You're not having to build a help desk and run that way. That's not getting in your way of having good conversations. We actually can free ourselves of that burden if we do this properly. And there's a lot of partners that are, and there's a lot of partners with the mindset of we're going to kill support. We don't want to have to provide support. So what can we do to make the environments the best that they are, put as much self-service in the power of the client's hands as possible, and try and provide as least amount of support as necessary. And that's a freeing thing. And that's why I keep getting up in the morning and doing what I do, because I can see the world of opportunity and you can go fast in this space.
That really puts a fine tip, James, on that notion of that, you said, the energy needed to do that transformation, to hop into that blue ocean. Boy, you cannot be on the fence of, what do I want? Do I want to sell? Do I want to hang out? Do I want to do this? A few things have to really get tight in your head of what's my relationship with this business? What do I want to do as an owner? Because if I do nothing, I think, to your point, that's a really dangerous time to do nothing. And James, we lost your video there. Can you still hear us?
Yeah. I'm back. Here we go.
Okay, we're back.
We're back.
Okay, good deal. No, I think I'm just going to say what I said again for the editor. I'm going to go like this. Yeah, I think I think it really puts a fine tip on the idea that to do that transformation, to jump into that blue ocean, takes a high degree of energy. And this is the most dangerous period ever to be uncertain about what you want, or to know what you want and to just sit back and pretend the world is the same. That's a really dangerous thing right now. Yeah, I think that's very enlightening, James. Appreciate that.
And to boil it down as we're wrapping up, and what I talk to partners about, it's a really simple decision. Are you going to transform or exit? Pick one and be deliberate about it. Never been a better time to cash out and exit.
Yeah.
So go do it. Go out on top if we have to go out on all the pressure. Or if you're going to be there longer, transform. Like, it's a fairly simple choice. You just got to pick one. And the thing I'd say as well, as sort of my last thought, is a lot of partners are looking inwards in the industry. They're looking at what other peers do. They keep asking what everyone else is doing. Well, there's big dangers around this, especially for the people that are just relying on the forums and things. The people that have time to sit on forums are not the successful partners. Just to be brutally frank, yeah, there's probably a couple that sit there and give back generously, but 99 out of 100 are in the same position you are. I can say that with such certainty because our industry average EBITDA is 6%. 25% of the industry is operating at break even or a loss at any one time. So chances are very high that the person you're talking to is not running a high performing business. And secondly, relying on vendors to tell us what to do is also very dangerous. They don't know. They're trying to flog products, even if they've got the best intentions, and a lot do, a lot don't. They don't understand our business models and they don't understand the end clients. They just know how their product fits in. And so if we're relying on a vendor to tell us what to do in our business, we've already lost. And so what we need to start doing, because there's not a lot of people talking about like what I talk about. I'm an advisor, so I always expect the clients that I work with to take what I say and then filter it and apply what they think is best for their business, because it's not my business. It's the same as when I talk like this. You've got to look at the people that are actually doing the right things, which are very few, and they're very quiet doing their own thing because they're so busy on growing their own business and being successful. So you might not actually see what the partners are doing. So the best thing that you can actually do is go talk to your clients, understand where they're at, understand their challenges, their opportunities, their industries. Stop going and wasting all this time coming to industry events. Go to the clients' industry events. Go spend time with your clients. Then you can see what the trends are to start looking at what you can do to monetize to bring solutions to them. And there's no single right way to do anything. There's no cookie cutter approach. So if you're expecting to do things cookie cutter in this modern world as a tech partner, just be a reseller, and that's all you do. Be a technology broker. Don't pretend anything else, because there's so many different ways to provide these solutions to clients. The simple decision you've got to make is: do you want to be a broker, an advisor, or a specialist? Pick a lane, stay in that lane, and go hard at it based on the client profiles. And again, this all ties back to where we started around having a strategy. If we know what we want to achieve, these sort of things I give you, that's a strategy. If I pick on being a specialist in Azure, go for it. Then who's your ideal client profile for that? Probably not direct clients. It's actually probably all the other partners that don't have those skills. So create a channel model. There's your operating model. There's your business model. Then you can build those go-to-market and all that kind of stuff. It comes from down to very simple decisions, but we need to change our mindset. It's not a bolt-on. It's a massive transformation and curve jump, and that requires you as the owner to massively transform your thinking.
Amen. That's beautiful, man. I love the clarity of the transform or cash out. I heard a lot of conviction in your voice with that. I know I'm going to have to sit on that a little bit and really take that in, because it sure feels right when you say it, James. That's awesome. Well, James, we definitely have to have you back. I think there's a lot to talk about with that blue ocean. We could probably spend a couple hours on that alone, because I think we've brought, the listeners to this place of, thinking about their world as it is and thinking about what could be. But there's the conversation around that blue ocean, I think, is massive, because I don't think people get that conversation very organically. I don't think that's what our vendors are talking to us at these trade shows and events. And, I love that input that, like, stop going to these industry events, go to your clients' events, be engaged with that, hear what they want. That's massively excellent input, James. James, let me ask you this as we wind down. Where can people find you? You've got a lot of great insights. Where can people find you out in the world?
Probably best central point is, if you're not following me already, jump on LinkedIn. Just look for me on there and follow there, and I chuck out a lot of the resources and thought leadership. You'll see the videos and links to other things, and just see if it resonates, or use it to validate, use it to challenge your thinking, or give you more resolute thought process on where you want to head. It doesn't worry me if you agree with me or not. Just break the pattern of what our traditional thinking is all I'm trying to do, because what we've always done is not going to be successful in the future. It's not successful now.
That's right. Well said. Well, James, thank you. Everyone, thanks for coming along with us on this conversation. If you got comments, leave them below, whether you agree with us, whether you disagree. Give us your own unique perspectives. We'd love it. If we earned it, give us that like, that share, subscribe. It means a lot. And until next time, have a great week until we drop another one. James, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Right on. Bye.